Welcome to Canceled Out, where we do our best to love our enemies as much as they hate us. I'm Scott, and the bearded and balded conservative guy, joined by my co-host Max, and we've got a lot to cover today again.
The better looking and not balded.
Well,
bearded.
I mean, that's
no big deal. Right?
That's up for debate. I mean,
no, it's really not.
Fair enough.
Starting out strong.
Right. So we've got a lot to cover today in the world of nonstop human stupidity. And news coverage is nearly impossible to get to everything in an hour. So we'll do our best and, just a weekly podcast. And this is also why we need your help. We need you to like, subscribe, download, share it with people you love, share it with people you hate.
Where's this going to be? Might as well start talking about it. Where are we going to be publishing? Have you got that figured out yet?
Yeah, so we're going to be publishing this on Anchor. We'll provide the link. Obviously, if you're listening to it, you've already got the link. But we'll provide,
that's a good point.
We'll provide a share link as well for you to pass on social media and everything else. So today, we're going to be talking about why Joe Biden is hiding in the White House and what's going on with that. Voting rights. Are you entitled to ease of voting? And why Dr. Seuss is the most racist person to ever breathe oxygen in America. We found that out.
It's about time we canceled that bitch.
I know. It's
golly.
Truly, like if you could write a book like the Lorax, I mean, you deserve to be canceled. Kroger opening their $55 million automated warehouse in Butler County. Anderson High School adopting their new mascot. And a Cincinnati police sergeant suing the city, claiming he was prevented promotion.
Passed on promotion.
Yep. Because he was white. So
white people can't catch a break, man.
With all the privilege that we have, I just don't.
I'm ready to cash mine in now.
I don't know where to do that. Is there like a dispensary or something that I can go to? I'm still trying to figure that out in the city. And the gas prices in the city jumping to about $2.75 a gallon. I noticed that this past week. Hamilton County Board of Elections
these days with the gas prices.
Yeah. And Hamilton County putting forth some mayoral candidates, and our lovely Brent Spence Bridge taking second place, taking the silver, and the second worst bottleneck in the United States.
That's pretty much the whole story. I mean, we'll cover that for 5 more seconds with you. We're going to end with a bang here. Start with a bang and end with a bang.
And so our cultural philosophical discussions again. So we didn't get to hit cancel culture a ton last week.
Plus I had too many beers.
Plus that.
Y'all didn't know because it was audio only, but I got up twice to go to the bathroom. So tonight I'm sticking with Manhattans. I'm going to try to take it easy.
And so, so our cultural discussions are going to be over cancel culture once again, maybe taking a little bit of a different look at it in light of Dr. Seuss and future generations canceling us for our own moral failures and things like that. So, let's go.
Future generations, though, man, it's going to happen sooner rather than later, I would think.
Yeah.
Before the next generation happens, we'll all be canceled.
Right. I mean, yeah. We're already starting to see that. So, this week, Joe Biden setting personal records. I mean, what better way to start off your presidency than setting a new PR? The problem is what that personal record is being the longest president to give a solo press conference. It was measured since Herbert Hoover, who is arguably the worst person to ever hold the office.
Until now.
Right, I mean...
42 days?
42 days without holding one. And counting, we should say, because
Isn't
this
that
is still
how
going on.
long he's been president?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm trying to do the math here. I'm like, hold up, no.
How many drinks have you had already?
I mean, come on, man.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. That's his catchphrase.
I mean, right? Thanks, Biden.
Good Lord. Thanks, Biden. Thanks, Biden.
Yeah, like, it's really bad. And what you see, it's getting really bad when CNN even calls him out on this stuff. Like, they're riding him for it because no other president, like I said, Joe Biden is way ahead. Like most are within the first month of their presidency, and so
Here's the graph with all of okay.
Yeah,
Trump went 27 days.
Yeah.
Now, see, let's put this into a little bit of context here. It didn't bother me and wouldn't have bothered me, honestly, if Trump went 42 days without a press conference because we saw how the press treated him.
Sure.
Right? The thing that's crazy to me is that the press loves Biden.
Right.
In all reality, I bet you, like in secret, they can't stand the guy because honestly, who can like with a straight face say that Biden is just the man and he's just so awesome? Come on, he was not Trump. That's the only thing you like about him. Let's get real.
Well, I mean,
but did you see the WAPO headline? Was it today where they said that Joe Biden is going to be showering Americans with their $1,400 stimulus check, and it's going to all but end poverty in America?
Right. I was going to say yeah.
But then you look, and I saw some graphs. And I don't know how accurate they are, but you look and it's like 10% of the, what is it, $19.2 trillion or whatever. I didn't pay attention to the number.
1.4 trillion.
Oh, wow, way off.
It's bad.
The point is it's big.
Yeah.
But like only 10% of it actually went to America.
Exactly.
Like 90% of it, and I don't know if the numbers are exactly right, but it's pretty close, I'd say, went to foreign entities.
Exactly.
Now, I wonder how much of that went to gender studies and all that. But the point is, coming back to this whole Biden isn't holding a press conference, why? They are glowing all over you. You can't even talk to them? Right. And then they cut off his feed when he says he's going to stick around and take questions. That is, if that's what we're doing. It's like, dude, who's in charge here?
Right.
Well, and I'm not even saying that. I'm not even saying that with the typical, it's really, he's just a puppet. He's just a face, which I believe he really is just a face.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're not the one saying whether or not you're going to take questions,
right,
then who's in charge?
Right.
Trump would have been like, I'm taking questions or I'm not taking questions, and that's just how it is.
Well, that's what he did.
But Biden is like, are we taking? Well, we'll take questions. If is that what we're doing? Are we gonna take, who's in charge? Are you the president or not?
Right. Well, yeah, and they'll argue for him, like, oh, well, they keep track of his agenda and stuff like that. He doesn't really worry about that. But at the same time, this all goes back to the question that, an absolutely fair question in my mind about people had during the election was, what is his health status? This guy literally won a presidential campaign by hiding in a basement, by not talking, he won a campaign by not campaigning. Yep. How does that happen in modern day America? And what is the status?
Well, it totally wasn't fraudulent. Wink, wink. Nudge, nudge. Please don't cancel us.
Well, right. And it just begs the question of what is going on. Like, we all know he's not with it, but to what extent? And you see it in this kind of stuff, that when he says stuff like that, well, if that's what we're doing or whatever, well, answer questions. You're the president. This is kind of part of your job.
Pretty straightforward. I mean, don't just rely on your redhead to talk for you, man. I mean, we got to do something or other here.
Well, I mean, but Obama did it with Carney and with everybody else too. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the way that, and see that in some ways,
it's just that there's
smart.
A reason why that it's not just that it's not just like where Trump had a reason where he could say, look, you guys treat me like crap, so I'm just not going to talk to you.
Yeah.
Biden doesn't have a reason.
Right. Well,
we can there's an implied reason, I think. We can insinuate what the reason is.
Exactly.
But he's not going to explain why he's not talking to the press. The people that love him.
Right. Well, yeah, and that's the thing. But it also, in some ways, it's kind of smart. And I will give him this. And it's not him. It's the people who manage him. It's his handlers and stuff. It's a smart strategy because Trump was a guy looking in search of a rake to step on in a lot of ways when it comes to media and stuff like that. He was great at it in some point. But at the same time, there was a lot of times where he would go too far and he would say something and go, just take it that one step and then step on the rake, and then for the next 2 weeks this is all you hear about is something stupid that he said or whatever that he didn't mean, and then it behooves us to be like, well, no, take it in context and all this other kind of stuff. So they don't have to do that with Biden because
as long as he ain't talking.
Because right, I mean,
although when he talks,
well, yes, that is, and
because it's not like he hasn't had gaffes, even though he's not talking to the press. It's like, dude, like they're controlling every amount of access that anybody could possibly have to you, and you still
screw it up.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
I wonder if he can go 2 or 3 a week his entire presidency for the next 2 years.
They'll let him get away
until
with
Kamala takes over. I mean,
right? Oh, they'll let it. The media will let him get away with it for sure.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to make him step up in any way, shape, or form. So, speaking of Biden, he signed an EO on Sunday to to make it easier to vote, which...
Make it easier for who to vote?
For anybody. But this kind of is in the light of his... I don't know if you saw his town hall. That was a complete disaster on CNN.
Is that the one where he told everybody that they're Neanderthals if they don't want to wear a mask?
No, that was in light of Texas opening up. This was actually before that. Oh, okay. So he goes on, and this tells you how much it has kind of infiltrated society. So I found out about this from a TikTok video. So it's all over the place. And he basically said that Hispanics and black people were basically not intelligent enough to know how to register online in order to get registered to vote.
No, it wasn't to get registered to vote.
What, it wasn't?
No, it was to sign up for the COVID vaccine.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah.
But I mean, if they're not smart enough to sign up for the COVID vaccine, they're probably not smart enough to sign up to vote.
Either way, you're racist. Right. So. Yeah. So,
it's kind of, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of, you know how they always talk about how minorities tend to not have state IDs and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
And they say it's just harder for them to get it for one reason or another.
Yeah.
And when you push them hard enough on it, it ultimately comes down to the level of intelligence of a minority.
Right.
When you press the left, that's what they end up at. And it's like... I mean, and then you see like these videos where they'll actually go around to some of these neighborhoods and they'll go and talk to these black people and Hispanics and they'll go, hey, how hard is it for you to get a driver's license or a state ID? Do you have a state ID? And they're like, yeah.
Right.
Like, is it harder for black people to get a state ID? And they're like, no. Now it's anecdotal, right? Because it's
sure,
but it's just what it reminds me of.
Right.
I mean.
Right.
That it's what they can get away with. It blows me away what they can get away with.
Well,
you know what I mean? The conservatives are constantly just trying to get the government out of everybody's way.
Right. That's the problem with this executive order.
More often than not, of course, they'll say, well, abortion, you're getting in my way. Okay, it's a whole other conversation. We'll get there at some point, I'm sure.
Right.
But I mean, generally, small government is about getting the government out of everybody's way and not getting in the way of minorities as well, which is why in my opinion, we saw such an increase in employment among the minorities in America under Trump.
Right.
Because the government got out of the way.
Exactly.
And it gave them the ability to get a job.
Exactly.
So my point is that they're seen as racist for not wanting to give handouts to black people.
Right.
They're seen as racist for not wanting to accept everybody into this country over our borders, right?
Right.
But as soon as the leftist says, well, blacks aren't smart enough to get an ID,
right?
Blacks aren't smart enough to sign up for COVID vaccines, nobody has anything to say about it. No one's raising. Well, I mean, we're raising hell, but no one else is really racist. It's like, you have no business calling me a racist,
right?
Like, it's
yeah, exactly. And so this is what he said as he was signing. This kills me. It truly does. Every eligible voter should be able to vote and have that vote counted. Now that I agree with. That's completely fine. But it's this...
Yeah, but that is kind of rich considering this last election, which was totally not fraudulent. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right, exactly. But this is what kills me. So if you have the best ideas, you have nothing to hide. What does that have to do with anything? What does that have to do with voting?
What?
If you have the best ideas, you have nothing to hide. And let the people vote is the end of the quote. So it's like...
Best ideas, you have nothing
okay. To hide. Like, this is another one of those situations where he says something.
Does he know what he meant?
It's right. It's like, if you have the best idea.
I'm retro pressure.
So what you're saying is, unless you voting suppression is now idea suppression. Like what?
Okay, if you have the best ideas and you have nothing to hide, then maybe show up for a press conference or two.
Well, right.
Whatever.
Right. What is, and that's the thing. This is just federal overreach, again, against the state governments to take over voting and whatever else.
It should be the states, and in particular the local municipalities in charge of...
Well, not only that, there's not even...
The federal government shouldn't have any say in it.
No.
Or very little, at least.
Right. They should have oversight, and that's about it.
Yeah.
You know, to ensure that the process was followed, that's about it. You know, the states are responsible for how managing and making the process themselves.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's insane. Obviously,
I mean, if you want to cheat in your own local elections, I mean, I just won't live there.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean,
well,
but if you're going to cheat in my state and national elections and you get a say in what I have to do...
Right.
No
problem. We're already seeing, you know, the blue wave leaving blue states and people moving
and taking their politics with
to
them.
more red states.
Please just stay in California, guys.
Right, yeah.
Unless you're a conservative and you've finally had enough and you're ready to just get out of there. But if you're a leftist in these blue states and you're concerned about these high taxes and you're concerned about all this stuff, just stay there.
Right.
You know what? Suck it up. You wanted this.
Well, yeah.
We didn't want it. That's why we didn't vote for it.
Exactly.
Don't come here and vote against our will.
Right.
You don't belong here. Frankly, this is not your culture.
And that's the crazy part.
If you think that's what the government's role is to just oversee every little thing, then you don't belong in our culture. Frankly, it's not a race thing. It's you wanted to vote for socialism. Well, have at it. It's yours. I don't want it over here.
Well, yeah. And that's the ironic part is you vote for all these policies and put it in place, and then all of a sudden you decide, oh, I don't like it, so let's go somewhere else, and then do the same thing over. Like, is that not the definition of insanity?
It's the definition of communism.
Well, yeah.
Is what it is.
So
communism always wanted to take over the world.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah.
Capitalism can't exist if communism exists.
No, those two things are mutually exclusive. Absolutely. Well, socialism, since communism is a form of government, socialism is a form of economics. But right. Yeah. So yeah, more federal overreach. And my question is, when is going to be the time for the states to actually stand up and do something about this garbage? Because this is their issue. This isn't a federal issue at all. The federal government, I mean, the states can pass legislation to completely go against this executive order. It's not even law. It's an executive order. Yep. So that's.
I mean, we've seen states. I have a couple I'd like to pull up. I don't have them in front of me, but we've seen states who are just flat out going to reject some of these executive orders from Joe Biden. They passed laws and legislation and signed their own executive orders. And I want to say Idaho is one of them. I think South Dakota was one of them.
Yeah.
And they're saying we're just not going. We're going to ignore these executive actions.
Right.
And this brings me back to the point that I'm going to make over and over again on this show is that you got to get local.
Right.
Because, frankly, the Republicans are weak locally. They really are. Yeah. Especially in especially in Hamilton County, the Republicans are very, very weak. And if you need, if you want a state that's going to protect your rights, if you want a local community that's going to protect your rights, you actually have to get involved.
Oh yeah.
You can't just sit around and sit there and go, okay, well, I really think I should be free. Well, yeah, great. So should we all. You know what? Right. But sometimes you don't get to be free unless you fight for it. That's just the way it goes. So I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. What are you going to do?
Right.
Right? Are you just going to sit there and expect you get to be free and just say, well, thank you guys for fighting? Well, you're welcome, but I'm not taking you with me if I have to, kind of leave you stranded, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have the resources to take care of everybody. If you want to be free, you need to put in the time. You need to put in the effort, and you need to vote for the people that are actually going to protect your rights.
Right. And I've that's something that I've always said to people, too, just in general. Even as a kid and when I wasn't really even into politics, it was like, well, you piss and moan all the time about the government, about local people in power and whatever else. Well, what are you doing about it? And not only that, are you actually voting and getting involved? And most of the time the answer is, of course, no. Or, oh, well, I just don't have the time to do that, or whatever it is. But most of the time, the person's not as involved as they should be, or whatever. And I said, well, so you just want to sit and complain and not do anything about it. So you're going to sit and complain literally for the rest of your life when somebody you don't like is in power and in position to do something. Like, what kind of sense does that make? Well, if you're not going to be the person to go and get elected, then you're never going to be truly happy with anybody, really, because you're not going to agree with everybody on everything.
No.
But at the same time, it's like you're just going to sit and complain about the same thing over and over again. It doesn't make any sense to me.
If you're one of these people who were like me, and I'm just going to call myself out too, but if you're one of these people who were like me, who sat around and complained about it all day long and didn't actually go out and start getting involved in doing something, it's time to wake up.
Yeah.
It's time to get your ass off the couch.
Right.
And I say that as somebody who was like that for years, probably more than a decade of not getting it. And
most people,
I'll use this as an excuse, but I just didn't understand the importance of local elections. I've heard people say elections are so important, local elections are so important, but it's like no one's ever really explained that. And that's why I come back to local elections are the last line of defense of your rights.
Right.
All right. So if we were to come back to the conversation about Second Amendment sanctuaries, there are hundreds of Second Amendment sanctuary counties in this country, and the list continues to grow. Right. And I'd love to see Hamilton County become one of them. But here's what that means: a Second Amendment sanctuary means that the sheriff, who's in charge of the police resources in that county, has decided they are not going to use those resources to enforce unconstitutional gun control laws.
Right.
That's what that means.
Right.
It's also relatively symbolic, but it's also the state and the government having one less weapon to use against you.
Right.
This is why local elections are important. Now,
absolutely.
I'm going on a tangent here, so bear with me a second. But it's important, I think.
Oh, yeah.
You have this local election on lock. If you have the local elections on lock, if you have your politics on lock in Hamilton County and your own neighborhoods, that's going to spill out into your larger politics, right? So it's going to spill out into your state. To get back to your point about when's the state going to do something about it?
Right.
Well, the state will do something about it when you do something about it in your local area.
Yeah.
Right? Because
it's true.
Because those politicians come from our local municipalities, from our local governments. That's where they start their careers here, and then they grow into a state senator position, perhaps even a governor, maybe even a state a senator in the federal government. So you're not going to get anywhere by demanding that shit happens from the top and works its way down. You have to work from the bottom up.
Yeah. No, I agree. But at the same time, if these people, for our state in particular, since our state still truly is far more conservative in the population, at least, not the population centers, but the general population is far more conservative than most states. We could work from either direction. So it kind of baffles me at the same time when that doesn't happen with this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But we're definitely the exception, I think, when it comes to that particular kind of...
I think, and I know we want to move on to some other topics, but I want to say one last thing about what you're saying there. Mm-hmm. The reason I think it's like that, there is, I think, an enthusiasm gap between liberals and conservatives.
Oh, for sure.
Particularly in these higher population cities, like in Cincinnati and Hamilton County at large.
Right.
And I think that the reason is because the education system gets the left worked up, gets them frothing at the mouth.
Sure,
that's what they do.
Sure,
which is why we see so much more violence coming from the left than from the right, regardless of your position on what happened during the riots. And I will call them a riot. I won't call them an insurrection.
Yeah,
but
no.
But my point is that our education system, starting with our grade school education, going up through high school, and especially in the universities, have been infiltrated by the left, and they spout the most insane gender theory crap, race theory crap to these kids, and then these kids get all worked up, and they don't have any jobs. It's not like they have any marketable skills, right? They graduate with a degree in underwater basket weaving, and then they have no job, and they've got all this time on their hands.
Right.
So what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Well, they're all fired up. They're probably pissed off because they're in debt.
Well, sure.
Because they went to school on a lie that, hey, it doesn't matter what what your skill is. I mean, you'll get a job. Well, no, it's not going to work that way, right? So the left creates this angry mob that actually gets worked up and gets out and actually gets the vote, right?
Yeah.
They get out the vote.
Yeah.
Conservatives, on the other hand, have jobs.
Right. Families.
And families largely have jobs, and they're not transitioning genders or any of that other stuff that gets in the way of actually being productive, right? So they are not getting out there and doing what needs to be done, right? Because they don't have time. But again, I'm going to come back to this. If you've got an hour a week, dedicate it.
Yeah.
And dedicate it to more than just shit posting on Facebook.
Well,
It's got to be call, at least, you know what? Here's one thing you can do. I'm going to give you all one action item. Woo. If you're listening. This is one thing. I'll probably repeat this over and over again. Find out who your precinct executive is.
Yeah.
The precinct executive is a local position for your precinct that you live in. And for the Republicans, they're largely unfilled or unfulfilled, right? So you may have somebody that sits in that seat, but they're not actually doing anything with it, right? They're not knocking on doors and all that kind of stuff. Right. So at least find out who it is, if there is anybody.
Yeah.
That's the first start there, so that we know what kind of control we have. Because let me tell you something: the Democrats, they have all their seats filled in Hamilton County.
Yeah.
Bet your ass.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
That's your action item, people.
Yeah.
You can stop listening now, although you should continue to listen. But if you take nothing else, I say find out who your precinct executive is, because it's one of the most important positions in our political system.
Well, not only that, get involved, get your hands dirty, talk to that precinct executive, find out what they need. If you can help in any way, do that. Or if they have somebody already helping them that you can call, then call them.
And if it's not enough to fight for your freedoms locally to do that, it should be. But I understand if it's not. It wasn't enough for me all this time, so I'm not going to judge anybody. But consider this too. The more time you put in volunteering in anything, the more rewarding it can be for you personally.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because people get to know you. They get to know you. You're part of a community. And this is one of the... I know we're off on a tangent here because I know we got all kinds of local topics that we need to get to here, but I really think this is something we need to cover. We've been experiencing for the past many decades, a loss of community.
Oh, absolutely.
And especially with the internet, you would think that the internet brings us together. And absolutely, I think we all understand that it doesn't do that. The internet does not bring us. I mean, it could if we used it properly, but we don't. We're still figuring it out. It's still new.
Right.
So it's still kind of, for lack of a better term, the wild, wild west.
Right.
But if you are focused on, if you were to start volunteering and getting involved, you'd get to know people who will look out for you.
Right.
I've gotten to know some incredible people just in the past couple of months, and they're all interested in the work that I do.
Yeah.
They're all interested in supporting me. They all care about my prosperity.
Right.
Not me specifically, but they care because I'm involved and I'm putting in my time.
Sure.
And they all put in their time, and I care about their prosperity too.
Right.
So I want to know where all these people work or what businesses they run, so that I can patronize those businesses. Right. If I ended up in a situation where I was looking for a job, I have a network I can tap into, and if there's something available, I mean, I've created a name for myself. Not like I'm famous, but I've created a name for myself in this network that I can tap into. So it's more than just getting the politician you want into office, right? Mm-hmm. It's also about getting to know them on a personal level, and knowing that if you know your politician, your local politicians on a personal level, then you know whether or not they're actually looking out for you specifically, because they will look out for you specifically. That's just the way it works, because you look out. It's provincialism. You look out for the people that are in your circles.
That are meaningful to you.
You look out for your family first, then you look out for your neighborhood next, because geographically that's what you need to protect in order to protect your family, right? And it grows from there. So that's just how that works.
Right.
Get involved. Sorry, we can move on.
You're fine. The last national story, Dr. Seuss being the most racist person that any child has ever read.
Basically a Nazi.
Basically, he's the worst human to ever live, because his publishing company, because he's long since dead, but his publishing company is going to stop selling 6 titles citing racist and insensitive imagery. And they said that these books portray people in ways that are hurtful and wrong. Because, that's our, prerogative now, is to whitewash history.
We need to buy up these books.
Oh, that might be racist too. I'm sorry. What?
We need to buy up these books.
I know, right? Well, here they are.
They're not going to publish them.
Here they are. They're going to stop publishing.
Yeah, I see them. If I ran the zoo.
Yep. I think I saw it on Mulberry Street. If I ran the zoo, McElligot's Pool, On Beyond Zebras, Scrambled Eggs, Super, and the Cat's
Now,
Quizzard.
what makes these racist? Did you look into those?
Yeah. Because
I haven't followed this story very closely.
One illustration on Mulberry Street shows a Chinaman who eats with sticks.
Is that what it says? Does it call him a Chinaman, or are you just saying that?
I didn't look at the book.
Busted, Scott.
Yeah, right.
Busted.
Right.
You're canceled on episode 2.
Yeah. Hey, it was bound to happen.
Yeah.
So it shows an Asian person. The views of Scott
do not necessarily represent the views of Meg. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a caricature person, an Asian person using chopsticks to eat. That's the racist imagery in that one.
Okay.
If I ran the zoo, shows some black characters resembling monkeys, along with an illustration of an Arab chieftain on a camel with a caption that suggests he should be in a zoo.
But does it really?
Right. No,
I don't know. Does it? Because I haven't seen it.
Well, I haven't seen it either.
Okay.
But this whole thing is...
Oh, it does say Chinaman. You're all right.
Yeah. Well...
Man, this doesn't come out of your mouth.
Right.
That's just quoting, guys, okay? If that's what it says in the article, then that's what it says in the article.
Right. So, because I don't have these books personally.
We should buy these books.
Right.
So I got a friend, actually, that, just kind of a side note, who is very, very proud of his book collection.
Yeah. I have a few that I would say.
Yeah. And if he hears this, he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. But he collects all kinds of books on these kinds of topics, but especially books that are taboo.
Yeah.
Or banned from certain bookstores. It's like, I'm collecting all those.
Right.
Even if it's not something you agree with, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like,
well, yeah, I mean,
it's like, wouldn't you, here's a good question. Would you have Mein Kampf on your shelf?
I actually own a copy of Mein Kampf.
Well, see, there you go. That answers that. I would too.
That's why I'm a racist.
I would too.
But...
Right. I would too. And I would own the Anarchist Cookbook.
Right.
And I should get the Anarchist Cookbook. And it's not because I believe, obviously, I don't support anything that Antifa does, but it is their...
Yeah, it's their go-to text.
It's their tactics, right? It's exactly when you read. I've thumbed through it, but when you read through the Anarchist Cookbook, it's all of the tactics that the black bloc,
easy for you to say.
Yeah, right. Antifa stuff that they tactics that they use. It comes straight out of that book.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why it's good to hold on to that stuff is because you understand how these people think. And I do want to understand how Adolf Hitler thought.
Sure.
I think we all would want to, or should want to, if we want to keep that kind of thing from happening again.
Right.
And that's what I come to when I think of these books here. I know these aren't necessarily philosophical books about my struggle or anything like that,
neither was his really. But
I don't even know. Like I said, I haven't even read it.
It was good totally marketing on his part.
It's good for us to understand. So even if we accept that these books are in fact racist, I mean, why wouldn't we? First off, we can't just cancel everybody in history just because they did a bad thing.
Right.
All right. This is one thing that I think conservatives. I mean, this is not something that's ever going to convince the left, and I understand. I don't care. But conservatives are somewhat prone to this stuff.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Conservatives are very prone to cancel culture, and they'll bend the knee sometimes.
Sure.
If they feel the slightest bit uncomfortable, and I would encourage you to consider before you go canceling anything because the leftist mob says you should. Mm-hmm. And just because you feel a little uncomfortable about it, I would encourage you to consider: would you reject any slave owner from your group,
right?
Including, say, George Washington or Thomas Jefferson,
right?
And if you accept that people are flawed, you're not going to get a fighter to fight for you if you are looking for somebody who's flawless,
right?
All right, Trump didn't become a fighter because he walked on eggshells,
right?
All right. When you are looking for a fighter to fight for your rights, you're going to get somebody who's flawed.
Oh yeah.
So the courage is required from you to back them up when they end up in a sticky situation, like something they may have said years ago in a bus that was recorded, even though it was a private conversation and it had nothing to do with rape, no matter what anybody tells you.
Right.
That's what conservatives really need to understand.
Oh yeah.
Do not accept this.
Right.
Do not accept this Dr. Seuss cancellation crap.
Right.
Go out and buy the books and read them proudly. Well, no matter how offensive and racist they are.
And not only that, so the context too, is important. And this is where the left has the biggest issues, is everything is taken in today's modern context. Slavery is wrong today, so that means it was wrong back in the 1700s. Well, okay, fine. You can have some semblance of that argument, but at the same time, slavery did play a role in the South being an agrarian culture. It's just how it works. It's worked all over the world. It was in existence long before the southern United States. So, this whole in the context of Dr. Seuss, he writes kids' books. President Obama himself said he played an important role in children's development and reading and all this other kind of stuff. So here's where the left kind of gets in trouble with themselves is, well, we want to cancel something, but, well, your own guy said he was great, so what's the deal? But in some turns, too, Obama's been on eggshells with the left and everything, too, with some things and certain things.
Well, now that he can't be here anymore,
exactly.
They throw him out just like they're throwing
exactly.
out.
But it's
I'll
crazy.
tell you this, I would challenge you a little bit on that. I think the real trouble that the left has, if the right will talk about it, is the fact that slavery exists today.
Oh, yeah. It's just not...
Racism and slavery exist today, but slavery in particular happens in the Middle East and in Africa.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
Right now, there are people who are enslaved. So if your focus is on, as far as slavery goes, is on canceling people who are long since dead for whatever mildly inappropriate thing they might have said at the time, and not on what you can do to talk about the racism and the out and out slavery that's going on in the Middle East and North Africa right now, you're a coward, plain and simple.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's easy to go after a guy who's long since dead.
Well, sure, because you can't say
anything. It's easy to go after somebody who can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
I challenge you to actually do something about these slave owners
right.
in the Middle East and North Africa.
Right.
And if you're not, I don't give a crap what you have to say about Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that they'll just explain it away as well. That's not America, so it doesn't affect me and whatever else. Well, again, you're not arguing the point. You're sidestepping.
Yeah, they'll find some way. They would probably say something to the effect of, "Oh well, if we can come to terms with our own past, then maybe we can challenge some of it." And it's like, no, you know what? That's not how we ended slavery ever in the world.
Right.
At no time was slavery ended ever I defy you to prove me wrong on this. Mm-hmm. At no time in history did we end slavery because we came to terms with our evil past. No, we actually took action.
Right.
Abraham Lincoln took action.
People had to die.
Like, what was it? 400, 600,000 Americans had to die in order for us. Yeah. We had to actually do something.
Families killed families over this.
Right. Like, you need to actually put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
And if you're not going to do that, and all you're going to do is say, hey, well, I'm just not going to buy any books from your company more if you keep publishing Dr. Seuss books that are slightly offensive, and you think you're actually doing something?
Right.
Sorry, you're not, and you're a coward.
Right. Agreed. So that's it for national.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so local. So did you hear Kroger, this is actually in Butler County, but they opened up a $55 million automated warehouse.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So this is from WCPO Cincinnati. Kroger opened America's first automated warehouse in Monroe this week, according to the Journal News. The 55,335,000 square foot customer fulfillment center features digital and robotic capabilities that allow Kroger to assemble an order of approximately 50 items in 6 minutes. With robotics, instead of approximately 30 to 45 minutes, with a Kroger employee picking them up from various areas of a store.
Yep.
The reason why I really wanted to point this story out, and I think it's probably pretty obvious, but what do you think is cheaper? These robots that are significantly more efficient.
Oh, yeah.
Or the labor that you would have to pay for to add an additional 24 minutes to... I'm not going to do the math on the other one, right? Yeah. What do you think is more expensive? And that's without raising the minimum wage.
Well, sure.
Even if you kept the minimum wage as it was, which hardly anybody is actually paying minimum wage.
I was going to say most states' minimum wage laws are higher. But even
at the state minimum wage level, there are people. The companies are paying their employees more.
Typically,
I mean, not unlike fast food maybe, for high school workers. But I mean, if you're 25 years old and you're making minimum wage. Okay, I gotta wonder what you're doing wrong. Right. Sorry, I'm gonna be that way.
Oh yeah.
But my point is that even if we were to pay these guys the current minimum wage, Kroger is gonna save a crap ton of money. I mean, it's $55 million is a lot of money. I understand that, but that's an investment up front.
Right.
In the long run,
they're going
to be saving a lot of money.
Oh, for sure.
And they're going to be more incentivized to do this if you raise the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And on top of that, if you raise the minimum wage and people don't go to automated, all you're doing is raising the cost of living.
Well, exactly.
Because they got to cover that cost somehow. So what are they going to do? They're going to increase the cost of milk. They're going to increase the price of gas.
Right.
Which we'll get into that topic here in a minute.
Yeah.
Right? So all they're going to do is they're going to end up increasing the cost of living because labor is the most significant cost of almost any business.
Yes.
By far.
Yeah.
And if you think that this is actually going to make things easier on people, all you're doing is rolling the ball forward because you're just going to have to raise the minimum wage again to cover that cost of living.
Right.
So cost of living goes up. Oh, crap, we need to raise the minimum wage again. Ah, crap, cost of living went up. Ah, crap, we need to... Dude, quit doing that.
Right. Well, yeah. And
this... Dude, the plate is hot. Quit touching it.
Right. And two, this is the beautiful part of capitalism, because capitalism allows innovation. And so when Kroger does this, and they're going to get raked over the coals with this, I'm fine with it. This is the same argument that people...
Kroger's just about as woke as any of them, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, I agree. But in this regard, they're gonna get hammered for it because, you're making robots, not hiring people. Well, okay, fine. But guess what? This is what moves things forward. People said the same thing when ATMs were put in everywhere. Yeah. Bankers are going to be out of work and tellers are going to be out of work. Well, no, we still have those people to this day, even.
Yeah. Horse wranglers kind of went out of business when we invented the car. Dude, labor-saving devices do exactly that.
Exactly.
They save
Not
labor.
only that, people are going to move into a different field. So this is not like, oh, well, people can no longer get a job. If that is the attitude of a person or a group of people, then guess what? There's more of a problem there than robots took your job. Yeah. There's an individual, there's a personal problem. There's a heart problem with that. Yeah. You need personal motivation. You need to be a more productive person at that point. The robot has nothing to do with whether or not you have a job or not. It's doing, and at the end of the day, when you look at it, it's taking a menial job and something that's just complete, that most people wouldn't want to do anyway, and making a robot do it. So that you can go do something that you want to do or that you would more enjoy doing.
People do what they want to do now because of labor-saving devices than before the Industrial Revolution.
Exactly.
Now, it doesn't mean there weren't kinks in the machinery when the Industrial Revolution kicked off, just like with the information age.
Right.
There are kinks we're still working out, right?
Right.
So it's not to say that there weren't those kinks, but it's still progress.
Right.
It is. That's what it is. It's. I mean, and not in the progressive sense. I mean, in the actual sense of progress,
of moving forward,
of giving people the ability to, instead of having to wash their own clothes manually in a well, on a grate or whatever the hell they used. We're so far removed from that now. I don't even know what the word is. I mean, that's what got women into the workforce.
Right.
We had stoves and washing machines and dishwashers and stuff that they didn't have to do anymore.
Right.
And then they were like, well, what am I going to do
now? What am I going to do?
Well, maybe I'll make a career for myself. Right. So, these labor-saving devices have given people opportunities.
Oh, yeah. We are so privileged in today's world that we can go and spend 3 hours and watch somebody play football or somebody play a baseball game, and we can just sit there and watch them do all the work. Like, that's the day that we live in today, and that's insane. Talk to somebody from 200 years ago, that is completely out of, just not even a thought in their mind that they would be able to do that.
200 years ago, people are just fighting to survive.
Well, exactly. And so, it's crazy. Like, I'm all for it. People argue against the self-checkout, too, and I'm like, you know what? I can do that job just fine. Mm-hmm. I can probably do it faster and more accurately than I can in a lot of cases.
And honestly, again, if you're saving me money, you're also saving those employees money.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So you might have fewer employees, but they also don't have to make as much if we just let it happen.
Well, right. Yeah, if government would just
get out of the way and we just let things happen, then people can, honestly, people talk shit on capitalism. But here's the thing. If you were to let capitalism do its thing, this is just my theory. I could be way off on this. But I would bet you more people could sit on their ass justifiably and do nothing and still be taken care of.
Yep.
I
can see it.
I mean, that's just my opinion. I don't necessarily have a whole lot to base it on, but I will say this, because I know that there are probably going to be some steamy ears after you said the beauty of capitalism.
Oh, I know.
Because I could just hear the ringing.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah. Here's the way I see it. The thing they like to talk about when it comes to capitalism is that it's profit-based.
Yep.
That's how they always define it. Capitalism is purely about the motivation of profit, which couldn't be more wrong.
Right.
It could. I mean, even in the definition, I would bet, if we looked it up, I bet you the definition of capitalism says it's profit-driven economies.
Right. Yeah.
Couldn't be more wrong.
Right.
And here's why: everything is profit-driven.
Sure.
Every system is going to be profit-driven.
Sure.
Right. In communism, things are going to be profit-driven too. Right. Because you're going to have at least a handful of people who are going to be in control.
Right.
That's how it works out.
And they're the ones who
what
profit.
Do you think they're doing? They're trying to improve their station in life. Mm-hmm. That's what profiting is creating a buffer between you and basically not surviving.
Well, sure.
The larger bucket of money that you have or resources that you have,
the
further from death you are.
Right.
It's just the nature of it, right?
Sure.
So everybody is driven by profit.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they're doing, right? But capitalism gives everybody the ability to profit.
Right.
That's the difference.
Right.
Communism takes that profit away.
Right.
Gives ownership not to the people, but to the state.
Right.
And that's how it all. And they'll say it's the people that owns it, but if the people are voting for what happens with those resources, then all they're really voting for is the people who are going to be in charge of those resources, which basically transfers that ownership to the people at the top. So a side tangent on capitalism versus socialism and communism, but I think it's important to point out.
Oh, yeah.
They are all interested in profits.
Right.
Capitalism is just the free exchange of goods.
Right.
It's just me and you being able to have to have an agreement and act on it without anybody getting in our way.
Right. Well, and look at the number of people that capitalism has lifted out of poverty. Not only in this country, but worldwide.
Yeah.
I mean...
I think even Bono admitted that years ago.
Yeah.
And he's as socialist as they
right.
come. All right, so moving on, because we want to make sure we're moving this show along here, but I think those were some good topics. But all right, getting into my alma mater, Anderson High School. So, a little while back, they got rid of the Redskins. You know what they are now?
What the
Raptors.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. So how is this not discriminatory towards dinosaurs? Is my question, because where is the representative for the dinosaurs?
No, the dinosaurs
Raptors?
Are all dead. So
so
that's your solution.
So that makes
right?
it okay, but
yeah. So that's it does. So that's the solution. All right. In order for us to get away with anything anymore, you have to just kill off the people that are going to be offended.
But we did that with all the forefathers, and we're still going after them. So, well, we didn't kill them, I guess. They died.
The culture still lives on. But so again, from WCPO Cincinnati, Anderson High School students are Raptors now, administrators announced Friday morning. The school's new Velociraptor mascot, which was selected by students, staff, and alumni, is a prehistoric predator unburdened by the racial baggage that its predecessor, a Native American character representing the Anderson Redskins, brought to the school. Oh, man, okay. So this, who was it? The spokesperson, Angela Ingram, she says, in the face of a historic pandemic and passionately different perspectives, the AHS family was able to unify, choose a new mascot, and raise nearly $300,000 to date to support the rebranding. So this is what gets me. They're having to raise money to do this.
Yeah.
So we know, $300,000.
Right.
That's what they had to raise in order to change their mascot. Right?
Oh, yeah.
To remove Redskins from all the paperwork, all of the logos, all of their websites, all of their wall, wherever the Redskins name existed, had to be removed, and that's a cost. Yep. Then you have to incorporate a new mascot, which, I don't know if you've seen it. It's so freaking cartoonish and goofy looking. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
It's so lame. But
that's fierce right there.
But now, I've heard this recently, and I haven't been able to confirm this yet, but Forest Hill School District, which is where Anderson High School is supposedly broke right now.
Oh, really?
That's the claim. I'd love to confirm this, and if anybody has some information on that, I'd love to hear it.
It should be available.
But if that's the case, if it's the case that Forest Hill School District is broken, even if it's not, but if it is the case, and we're having to raise $300,000 external to whatever they're getting, just to be able to change this mascot, what are you not doing? What are you not focusing on?
Right.
Because the answer sounds to me like education is the thing that you're not focused on. Right? So...
Yeah. Well, and this goes back to, like I was saying before, with capitalism. We live in such a privileged society that we can worry about crap like this and spend our time and money on crap like this.
And act like we're such heroes.
Right, yeah. Just so we feel like we did something. I don't know if somebody made us think about it who wasn't a white liberal or wasn't a white person probably in general. Like, I'm going to make that assumption because that seems to be
are some
not the case most of the time.
There are some Native Americans who get worked up, but...
Well, yeah, but were they here
somebody.
locally? That is my point. Were they the ones to make this thing, or was it just somebody who wanted to feel virtuous and wanted to virtue signal and all that kind of garbage?
It's usually about virtue signal.
Right.
These people don't know what virtue is. So
exactly.
So they have to basically play a part.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah.
Right, when you're focused on things like this and you're worried about things like this, and again, you're not. It goes back to the topic of slavery in North Africa and the Middle East. If your focus is on the things where you don't have to put your money where your mouth is. Right. You have no skin in the game whatsoever.
Yeah.
If that's where your focus is, you are just a coward.
Right.
Because there are actual real issues out there besides people's feelings.
Yeah.
And I know that people say, oh, well, people commit suicide and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you know what? People commit suicide for all kinds of reasons. And the biggest one is it goes back to that lack of community. People lack community.
Oh, yeah.
So if you want to focus on suicide, again, focus on the actual thing that's causing the suicide.
Right.
Right? And that is people's lack of connection to each other.
Yep.
Just grow a pair of people. Come on, man.
And if you're in Anderson School District, I encourage you to go to the state website, look at where the school places in the state, where they rank. Because if it is not anywhere close to a decent, whatever you consider a decent ranking in the state, you're raising money and spending money to do this kind of crap instead of educating your kids.
I will, just from experience, Forest Hills has been one of the better districts.
Okay. Well, great.
Just in general.
That's great. So, and thankfully that's the case. But
I don't think that's because, I don't necessarily think that's because the school board has been so effective. I think it's in spite of the school board.
Gotcha.
I think the community itself
is.
I think the community itself is pretty on point, and is relatively active, and cares about their kids' education, and they are very involved.
Well, there you go.
And I think that is what contributes. I don't think that, and there are some teachers too that I think deserve credit. I mean, I remember.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if it's still the case, but when I was there were at least a handful of teachers there that put in the effort and actually cared and knew how to teach. Right.
Gotcha.
And I think that is what really contributes to the success of Forest Hill School District and to the success of Anderson High School, in spite of the school board.
Yeah, it always boils down to the individuals.
Right. All right, moving on. So, white Cincinnati police sergeant sues the city, accuses Department of Hiring discrimination. So again, from WCPO, Cincinnati Police Sergeant Eric Kohler is suing the city and claiming he was held back from promotion because he is white. In response, the federal government may reopen a consent decree that has informed the department's hiring policy and mandated a certain percentage of minority and women hires for roughly 40 years. But Mayor John Cranley is fighting the potential change to that hiring policy, saying that without the decree, Chief Elliot Isaac may never have been hired in the first place. What a thing to say.
Right? Right.
I mean,
where is that?
So hold on a second. Let me just make sure I understand what you're saying here, Mayor Cranley. Elliot Isaac may not have been hired in the first place because he's not merited to?
Right.
Is he not good at his job? What the hell is he doing there?
Right.
Mayor Cranley, just as far as I'm concerned, is telling us that Elliot Isaac has no business being in that position because he's not good enough at the job.
Right.
Because if he was good enough at the job, then you'd just hire him because he was good at the job.
Right. Right.
What a thing to say.
Right.
These people get away with this crap.
And not only that, we're not talking about, hiring somebody at a retail store or something. We're talking about police officers that are allegedly or implied in this not good enough to do the job. So how scary is that in those communities where those kinds of people are working? I mean, good grief.
Here's the thing. So
it boggles the mind.
In terms of this question of merit, if anybody should be challenged on their merit, it should be police.
Absolutely.
And you would think the left would agree with that.
Right.
Because you hear from the left all the time about this police brutality
right.
situation where you have people that come in that maybe aren't particularly smart, and you want them to be smart.
Right.
Right? And are good at their job and understand the law and understand their limits.
Right.
Those are, if you want an effective and good policeman, they have to be relatively intelligent. This isn't a grunt work.
Right.
Police work is not grunt work.
Right.
Even if you are simply doing traffic stops.
Oh, right.
Because you have to understand people's rights. You have to understand your limits. You have to know where to draw the line in terms of can you actually do that search? How
sure.
You have to be able to handle people yelling and spitting in your face.
I was going to say, emotions are huge.
Well, maybe spitting in your face you can actually do something about, but yelling?
Right.
People say, you see videos of these people saying just the most awful crap to these cops right in their face, and they sit there with that 1,000-yard stare, and they just take it. It takes and now there's obviously a lot of bad police, so I'm not trying to sit here and just praise the police just to be the conservative who goes, oh, I love my police officers and I support them all.
Well,
there's
bad people in every job
right.
too.
So
it's not just police.
But here's the problem. This is why I'm not particularly I support the blue. I do.
Absolutely.
I support policemen.
Absolutely.
But I try not to get too enthusiastic about it. And the only reason is because it doesn't take much, as we can clearly see from this story,
right,
for them to just put in the people that don't belong in that position.
Exactly.
So as soon, and they're doing that, as soon as you find out that somebody who potentially merited that position
right.
was overlooked because of the color of their skin.
Right.
As soon as you see that happening, you got to start to question the makeup of your police force that is responsible for policing your community.
Exactly.
in pulling you over if you do something wrong,
right.
and protecting your or actually respecting your rights
right.
when you are pulled over for speeding or for anything.
Right. Right.
You gotta wonder what the makeup of that police department is.
Yeah.
If it's not about who's best for the job,
right?
Whoa,
right?
I have a problem with that. Anybody should, especially if you have a problem with police brutality. You don't want.
Well, yeah.
Just,
yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, it seems so simple, but yet this is not the standard that we operate by anymore in society.
No, it's really not.
It's all about numbers and quotas.
Not if we keep ignoring things and letting the likes of Cranley run things and the likes of McGuffey.
Right.
This is
that's how they get
start
power.
getting involved again. So I'm going to come back to it. I'm not going to stop. This is why we cover local politics, because you got to get involved, because this stuff is happening in your backyard. This is my school. This is where I graduated. This is your backyard that this kind of stuff is happening with. Sorry, I'm referring back to the Redskins story, but this is our neighborhood that this stuff is happening.
Right.
All right. So moving on. Why are gas and grocery prices spiking right now? What would you imagine it would be? I want to hear what you think.
Well, I mean, they did shut down the pipeline. And,
come on now, Scott. That's just a conservative talking point. What really happened is that Texas experienced weather.
Right. Oh.
For apparently the first time.
They got winter in 100
4 years.
Yeah, something like that.
Well, because 4 years we had low gas prices.
Well, yeah, yeah.
So that means that Texas did not experience any severe weather in 4 years, because severe weather leads to an increase in groceries and grocery prices and increase in gas prices.
I mean, it only makes sense.
So I guess we have to go back and double check this.
Right.
But apparently there were no tornadoes. There was no winter weather whatsoever. Maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. There was certainly no hurricanes that would stop barrels of oil from coming in or any of that, right?
Interesting.
That's according to back at WCPO. That's what they're saying. Given Texas refinery shuts down $60 a barrel oil and increased driving this year, last year the pandemic sent demand in oil prices plunging to 10-year lows. That demand is sharply higher now. Now, there could be merit to that. But I just think it's interesting that the conservatives have been saying, watch what happens to the gas prices.
Yep.
Over and over again. That's the meme you'll see. When your gas is at $4 an hour in 6 months or so from now, right? I assume this means it's going to come back down, right? So that's what we're going to have to watch out for.
You can assume that, but I'm going to assume not.
According to this logic, that's what we're going to have to expect, right? If we're going to say that the bad weather in Texas is why we're seeing $2.75 a gallon in Cincinnati.
Right.
Well, there's not going to be bad weather for long. Things are going to come back to normal eventually, unless they go and shut things down, which Texas is opening things up even more. They've just gotten rid of their mask mandate. So we can expect that gas price in Cincinnati is going to come down between now and 6 months from now. By the end of the year.
Right.
By the end of the year, we shouldn't see $3 a gallon, right?
I'm not holding my breath.
Well, we'll find out if this logic holds up. Moving on, just a quick update for those who aren't aware, but the Cincinnati mayoral race is on, and the Board of Elections has certified 6 total candidates. So these are guys that you can just look up. I don't know anything about them, to be perfectly honest, except for all of them are Democrats, save for one.
There's only one Republican running?
No, he's not even a Republican. He's an independent.
Oh, good grief.
Yeah. I'm sure a Republican will get in the race at some point, but he's not going to win. So.
Whoa. But even still, I mean, you don't let him run unopposed.
Well, yeah, but there's still time. They'll get in there. They have until, I saw this before, but I don't remember what it is. But anyway, so we've got, you can look these guys up. Gavi Begtrup, who is a council member, and the Cincinnati City Council members sure are making a name for themselves lately. David Mann, who is an educator. Herman J. Naholi? He's the independent. And he's a retired firefighter. So that says something. Rafael Prophet, who is a Hamilton County Clerk of Courts. Aftab Puravel.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know anything
He's the current something or other. He's something in the county level right now.
Okay. And then State Senator Cecil Thomas. As previously reported, BOE did not certify petitions from startup founder Adam Kohler, occupational therapist Kelly Prather, who I've seen a lot of lately, and Cincinnati City Council member Wendell Young, saying that they did not submit the required 500 valid signatures. Supposedly, Kelly Prather she's claiming anyway, that she has submitted the required signatures, but I guess they couldn't validate them, or I'm not entirely sure what the issue was here. It's a story worth following, I think. Maybe we'll follow up on it. Kelly Prather. Now, she, of course, is playing the race card. She's a black woman, and therefore they hate her.
Yeah.
Which tells me everything I need to know about whether or not I would vote for her. I mean, as soon as you start saying that, it's like, okay, what?
What's the breakdown of Cincinnati City Council? Aren't most of those?
I know you've got the one gay guy. I know you've got a couple of black guys.
Well, yeah. I mean, because I was going to say, any of the ones that have been in the headlines lately were all black people. So,
now, they were supposed to have submitted their formal challenges by March 5th, which has already come and gone. And then the board will review the challenge. I haven't heard anything about whether or not they have been certified yet since then. The filing deadline was February 18th, so I guess there aren't any Republicans.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you saw that P.G. Sittenfeld, he, of course, withdrew from the race. He's currently under indictment. And the judge recently declined to drop that case.
Yeah.
And then also Chris Seelbach, he's the gay dude. Oh man,
yeah,
that guy's he's terrible.
He's
withdrawn. Vice Mayor Chris Smitherman said he would not enter the race as well. Do you think Cranley's going to run for governor?
I think it's very possible that he might. I hope that he doesn't.
I can't say for sure how I'd feel about him over DeWine.
I would not want him over DeWine.
Here's the thing. Look, Cranley, obviously we've already touched on him a little bit.
Yeah.
I will say this, just in terms of what you can see. Now, I don't have any numbers in front of me, but just in terms of what you can see in Cincinnati, there's been a huge turnaround. Now, I don't know how much of that can be attributed to him.
Right.
But he hasn't totally come in and screwed it up either.
That's true.
As far as I can tell.
That's true.
Right? I mean, if you look at Over the Rhine, which I actually remember this, about a decade ago, I think it was, I read an article about how it was the third most...
Yes.
No, it was the most.
Yes.
The most dangerous place to live in America, Over the Rhine was.
Yes.
The most dangerous neighborhood to live in.
Yes.
And what it said, I remember one of the statistics is if you lived in that neighborhood for a year, you had a 1 in 3 chance of being the victim of a violent crime.
Yep.
That's how bad it was. And I remember how bad OTR was growing up. I mean, we stayed away from there.
Oh, yeah.
Now...
I went to the zoo there. That was the only time I was ever there.
Right. It's booming now.
Exactly,
I mean, you've got all kinds of bars. You've got all kinds of foodie places. Taste of Belgium and the Senate. And I think the Senate's still there.
Was it,
that taco joint. Then Rheingeist.
Right.
Music Hall has area. The Washington Park has really turned around. I mean, it is, I mean, you still need to be somewhat cautious going there. You got to, but that goes with any downtown
city,
area, right? But it has turned around. And again, I don't know how much of that is due to Cranley or how much of that is due to Cranley just staying out of the way or making the right business deals. Right. I don't know.
Well, and too, we've had a great economy for the last, 5 years.
But it was improved even before.
Well, yeah.
It was starting to turn around even before Trump got into office. So, I don't mean this necessarily to give the credit to John Cranley. I just think it's worth considering and doing the research to find out how much of that can be attributed to him or not. Because if he is a business Democrat with some flawed concepts of race theory and gender theory and all that kind of crap, which maybe he is, I would almost say, okay, I'll take him over DeWine. Almost.
Yeah.
Now, I know a lot of Republicans and conservatives would probably fight me on that, and I'm okay with that. And you know what? I'd be welcome to be proved wrong, honestly. I might be totally off on that, because I don't know enough about John Cranley to tell you that I believe that for sure. But I'm just saying, look at the results and do the research, and if he is a better candidate than DeWine in the end, frankly, DeWine's got to go.
Well, yeah.
So if we don't primary them, bitch,
I cannot see him not get primaried this coming election. I really can't. I cannot fathom. He is so good of a governor. He's pissed off everybody in this state. So I mean, even his own party, I cannot see.
I've seen Democrats try to come to his defense, and then they just can't bring themselves to do it.
And you got a real problem if that's the case in today's society, where not a single soul will come to your defense over the decisions you're making.
He's got to go.
Yeah.
All right, final story of the night. This should come as no surprise to any Cincinnatian, really. But Brent Spence Bridge ranked second worst traffic bottleneck in the U.S. And most tri-state commuters would agree, according to, again, the WCPO. Bridge is just the worst. Turns out there's data to prove it. In fairness, the Brent Spence Bridge is actually only the second worst in the U.S. when it comes to traffic choke points, according to this year's Top 100 Truck Bottleneck list, released every year by the American Transportation Research Institute. So don't bury the lead here. Who's the first? Well, see, it doesn't even say.
Yeah, I can attest to this because I have to. I actually work one of my jobs in Kentucky, so I drive across the Brent Spence multiple times a week, and good grief, ever since that crash happened last year, it has been an absolute nightmare. And even before, it was bad, but since then, because they have half of the bridge open now, and it's just nonstop traffic backups every day. They literally stop traffic on the Kentucky side coming back across to Cincinnati. They stop traffic every so often to let the traffic go.
I just got caught up in a reason because they brought it down to like one lane, and for some reason I couldn't go south on it at all. I saw cars going south when I finally I crossed over that other one there going into Covington or wherever. Yep. And when I got on to finally got onto I-71 once I crossed over to Kentucky, I looked back and I saw cars coming south, and I'm like, how the hell did they get on? Because I missed something. Like they changed something going south on 71, 75 south, going towards downtown where that bridge is. Yep. And where it crosses and connects. I somehow ended up on 471 going into Newport, and I just was like, well, I guess that's what I got to do.
That's the less congested way anyway.
Right. Yeah, that's what it was. It was Newport, not Covington.
Yeah, so that's a happy mistake.
But I had to drive through Newport to get there, and it was Anyway, so the number one, just for anybody who cares, Fort Lee, New Jersey, I-95 at State Route 4.
I can believe.
Yeah.
In New York.
Number 3 and number 4 are both Atlanta, Georgia.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to Georgia.
Yeah.
I've never actually been, but I've flown in several times, and you can kind of see how bad the traffic can get just flying into it.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Right.
It's pretty.
I'm surprised the George Washington Bridge in New York isn't on there somewhere.
It probably is. I just didn't get to it, and it doesn't necessarily list the bridges. It lists like the area.
Yeah.
Or the part of the interstate. So when you get in here to, let's see. Ooh, Nashville, Tennessee's on that list. I-24, I-40, at the I-440 East. Yep, I would believe that.
Yeah, I've been across that many times.
Oh, yeah, I used to live in Nashville. So I'm not seeing any New York on here. Well, it is a top 100. It's got to be down there somewhere, I'm sure. Nashville, Tennessee again at I-40 at I-65 East. Yep, that was number 35. But So anyway, but second worst in the country, good old Cincinnati Brent Spence Bridge. I know they're talking about. Are they actually going to do something about that bridge? Because I keep hearing like rumors that they're wanting to restructure that whole thing. Well,
supposedly, what I've read, I don't know the whole story behind it because again, I'm not following local politics myself as much as I should. But what I've read from the local side is that we're waiting on Kentucky for the funding and all this other stuff. Like Ohio they've collaborated on the funding. Ohio has put the money aside to do it, and they're waiting on Kentucky. Now, whether or not that's true, I have no stinking clue.
I think I heard something about that.
But that's what
sounds like you know more than me.
I mean, so I have no idea.
Yeah, man.
I mean, they need to do something, but at the same time, what are they going to do? How long is it going to take? Because that's the main thoroughfare through 71 and 75. You shut that down, and that just, I mean, we saw it at the end of last year. It just creates chaos. Yep. And so, that's a tough situation for the city to actually handle.
Well, that wraps up the stories for now. I know we want to get into a little bit of cancel culture discussion. We're already a little bit over time, but I think we could spend at least 5 or 10 minutes on it. I do have some thoughts. Here's what I wanted to get into. I talked a little bit about this earlier as far as cancel culture goes, but here's, to me, the problem, or the real threat. I'm not as concerned about the left canceling us. For example, let's take Gina Carano as a great example. So Gina Carano was the actress who was fired from the Mandalorian show, which, just as a side note, I got Disney Plus for about a month or so, and I started watching Mandalorian. I actually got all the way into the second season, but like after about 3 episodes into the second season, I just didn't care. Like, honestly, like, it wasn't like it was a bad show, and it was certainly better than pretty much anything else Star Wars has been coming out with lately, but like, in my opinion, it's totally overrated. That's just my opinion. I think the show is totally overrated. I can see why people enjoy it, so I'm not trying to take it away from anybody as far as that goes. But I lost interest, and I just stopped watching even before this whole mess happened. But she got fired because she had made comments about why it's so easy to treat your neighbors like crap, which leads to the kinds of things that was seen during World War II in Germany. Right. And then they proceeded to treat their neighbor like crap by getting her canceled. Like,
what better way to prove her point?
Right. So the left, I mean, but here's the thing. She immediately gets hired on by Daily Wire, or partnered with Daily Wire, and I guess she's going to be producing and or directing her own content. Movies, TVs, stuff. I don't know what, but... which is awesome. That's a hell of an opportunity. Now, I don't know if she'll make as much money, but who cares?
Oh, she has the opportunity to make more.
Maybe, maybe she'll make more, but maybe she doesn't. Like, honestly, I mean, when it comes down to it, there's a certain... what's your peace of mind worth?
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, you know? and if you
would you take a pay cut, even a significant one, if it meant that you don't have to worry about the communists bringing the hammer and sickle down on you because you said something off color?
And she actually...
And true.
Ben Shapiro interviewed her on his,
I watched,
his Sunday special, and it was very good, if you haven't seen it, to go and listen to her side of the story and how this whole thing played out. And that was one thing that she kind of mentioned was, I don't have to worry about that kind of stuff with you guys. She's like, we may not agree on everything, and that's not the point. It's the point of security in the fact that I can be me, and I don't have to worry about you getting upset with me being me.
So I want to kind of try to define what it actually means to be canceled. So let's just start by talking about where, in my opinion, it comes from. So first off, humans are pack animals. All right, we rely on each other to survive.
Absolutely.
Right? We're not designed to be independent creatures that just live in the woods by ourselves. And it's not how we work. Right.
And we've seen that during the pandemic.
Right.
People are nuts.
So even before the age of civilization, when we were just, tribal creatures, you had to contribute in some way. Right. And it was probably even more than that. It was probably even more brutal. Like there was a lot of even higher. I mean, probably, they probably threw you in the river if you were born mentally handicapped. Right. I mean, it was, for sure. It was brutal back then. Right. So if you couldn't contribute, they would outcast you.
Right.
And being outcast is essentially a death sentence.
Right.
In those culture, days,
it
was essentially a death sentence. Now, honestly, it's the same here.
Sure.
I mean, if you were completely cast out, it would be the same, right? But people don't get really completely cast out anymore. They just go on the dole or whatever.
Right. Well, and today it's so much easier. Okay, so I get cast out of this place, so I'm just going to go over here, go 10 miles away where nobody knows me, and I'll be good. You can't really do that when you're cast outside the city walls, and the rest of it is just wilderness.
But this illustrates why we have such a visceral reaction to being canceled, right? Yeah. Or the threat of being canceled, right? Because it's literally our survival instincts kicking in.
Sure,
that's what it is.
Sure, and rightfully so when it deals with your job.
Yeah, absolutely, right? I mean, and that's exactly what it is. Or just not having a community that you can rely on and depend on that's going to look out for you.
For sure.
So it's no wonder that we tend to choose conformity over our own understanding of what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
Now that's essentially what ostracism is, and it's important. All right. Now this isn't a criticism of ostracism. Ostracism is actually a good thing. It can be abused. But it actually serves a very important purpose, and it's to protect the culture.
Sure.
So because humans that's the difference between humans and animals, right? Is that we actually have a culture. So and culture is how we define what binds us together, right? It's our traditions, it's the music we listen to, it's our values and our principles, and it's all that stuff.
Yeah.
And when too many people start to subvert that culture and violate those values, it can be destructive to that culture. And if that culture is destroyed, then we don't have that thing that binds us together beyond survival.
Right.
To me, that's what culture is. It's the thing that binds us together outside of just survival.
Sure.
So ostracism, it's a very important tool to protect that culture. Now, we're in a new world. Where we have all these different cultures living in the same space, under the same government, with the same transportation, the same economy, and all that kind of stuff. But and these cultures are competing because they have contradicting value.
Right.
I think that's what you're about to ask.
Well, I was going to say, should we have competing cultures? Because at least the way that I was taught in school was America was what? The great melting pot. We have American culture. And not to say that you can't retain the culture of it, like, especially for immigrants. You were brought up in a different country, in a different culture. It's not to say that you can't retain parts and pieces of that culture, or even that culture entirely, but you should still assimilate into the culture in which you live. And I think that's where the shortcoming comes a lot of time, and the disconnect comes a lot of time with it. And it's not only immigrants, it's literally everybody. My family has done things that, you know, Germans do and whatever else. You know, we eat sauerkraut for New Year's or whatever, or some people in my family do. I don't, because it's disgusting, but
yeah, I don't like it either. And I come from a German
something
family.
That smells that bad should not smell that bad coming into my body. So that's my logic on that. But that's that's a German heritage type thing and whatever else, you know, and whatever. So not to say that you can't retain some of that, but should we have competing cultures in where we live? Because you know, we see this kind of stuff.
Now that's an important point, and I think that would be a really good topic for another time, because I definitely have a lot that I can say on that. But just to make sure that we're sticking close to the cancel culture topic, because I do think it's important to point out, is that there is a conflict because we have this melting. The melting pot is an experiment.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's been an experiment.
Absolutely.
And there are ways that you can say it's worked, and there are ways that you can say it hasn't worked.
Right.
And it's not even just about race, it's really just about cultures. That's the real issue.
Yes.
Right? Is, do we have the same shared values?
Right.
And do we like the same things? Do we want to spend time around each other? I mean, those are important things when it comes to building and protecting your community and protecting your civilization.
Absolutely.
You have to have something that binds you together on all that kind of
Absolutely.
stuff. It doesn't mean everybody's got to be the same. It's just that certainly we have to share values, right?
Right.
We can't. A capitalist and a communist are two different value systems. They cannot coexist. Plain and simple.
Right.
One is going to subvert the other, whichever one wants to dominate, and usually it's the communist that wants to dominate. Now, so I have a few more points I want to get into this. When it comes to cancel culture, because it's culture that is the thing that binds us together, whoever controls the culture is the one who has the power to ostracize.
Yeah.
And in this case, to cancel.
Right.
And this is where we get into the problem.
Yep.
The problem is that the left has taken over a good portion of the culture.
They've taken over the whole culture in my mind.
The counterculture is pretty much on the right at this point. And
that's what I mean.
That's to our benefit.
Yeah.
Right? The counterculture is still a culture. It's just not the mainstream is what it is. Right?
Right.
It used to be the left was the counterculture.
Right.
Punk rock was the counterculture. And I know this is probably irritating to some people, but I think it was Paul Joseph Watson that always said that conservatism is the new punk rock.
Yeah.
You know, conservatives are the new counterculture.
It's so true.
And I think that's true. I mean,
it's absolutely true.
I think memes prove that.
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
left cannot meme.
Right.
The right can. It's just plain and simple. But as far as the institutions go, the left has control of Hollywood. They have control of the schools and universities. They have control of the arts.
Yep.
So they have the control over cancel culture. They have the power to cancel.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure. I mean, there's a lot we can talk about. I think we can save for another time what you do about this. But the reason I wanted to say all this is so that we could understand what cancel culture is. And to me, and anybody can disagree with me on this, it's just having a lot of discussions lately. I've been doing a lot of reading on this lately about what cancel culture is and how it actually functions. What are its properties, and how do you distinguish it from ostracism, which again we can argue is a valuable and valid tool to use to protect your culture.
Sure.
Right? So does it mean that we do need to start to segregate into like-minded cultures, even if it's small communities that are like-minded and only allow like-minded people into those communities, right? I don't know what that looks like or how that all works, but I'm just kind of pointing out, I mean, if you could maintain even a small community and build your own small culture around that and protect that and utilize ostracism to protect that as opposed to using cancel culture, which is really, to me, about dominating all of culture.
Right.
And destroying anybody who goes against it.
Right.
And I think that's where the problem is. I think it's that cancel culture is about one entity effectively having all of the control over the culture and then exclude and choosing to exclude certain people who don't fall in line.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one thing to exclude somebody and go to that culture.
Right.
It's another thing to exclude somebody and say, you've got nowhere to go.
Right. Well, yeah. And
but to bend the knee.
I don't really think that we could even apply ostracism today, and at least not here, because I'd be pretty sure it goes against freedom to associate and whatever else.
Not necessarily.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's social ostracism, right? Like your
that's
friend group.
That's what canceling basically is social ostracism.
Well, again,
in a lot of regards.
This is why this is an important conversation.
Where it starts to go.
How do you know the difference between cancel culture and canceling somebody and ostracizing somebody? So we're gonna have a lot of conversations about this, I'm sure. But let's just try to take a look at this from a micro level.
Yeah.
You and I have a friend group of, say, 10 people that tend to hang out. We all are very like-minded.
Right.
One guy kind of steps out of line in that. And in whatever way he does. Maybe he starts lying to people, or he steals from people, or whatever it is, right? Now, we're not going to go call the cops. We're not going to go throw him in jail. We're not going to do any of that kind of stuff, but we're probably just not going to hang out with him.
Well, exactly.
Right? Now, that's justifiable. I think you and I could both agree that's ostracism.
Absolutely.
Right? So that's what I mean by social ostracism.
Yeah.
Now, that's not canceling.
Well,
you can... the reason why this is the distinction I've been starting to make, and I'm going to refine this over time, so I may change my mind after some time, because I've changed my mind 20 different times just in the past week looking into this topic.
Yeah.
But it seems to me the big difference is canceling is ostracizing somebody and giving them nowhere to go but to bend the knee. Ostracizing somebody is saying you are just not welcome here anymore.
Right. You're not welcome.
You can go and engage in that behavior over there with all the druggies and all their culture.
Right.
Or you can go and fix yourself and maybe we'll let you back in our club. Right. That is, to me, the difference. Sure. Canceling somebody says this is about destroying you as a person unless you bend the knee.
Oh, yeah.
And having no other option.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a communist, I just assume deport you.
Right.
Now, you can go live in China. I mean, I just assume communism didn't exist, but you can go live in China. They're communists. So feel free. Go over there.
For sure.
I'm not going to tell you you don't have anywhere you can go. You can't.
Sure. You got to go.
You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, right? So, but that's I think that is the distinction. Maybe it's not the only distinction, and maybe I'm even wrong. Like I said, I've been changing my mind over and over again on this.
Well, and it's one of those things that nobody really has a true definition. It kind of changes and molds itself to situations, because the term is just so over broadly used in most situations, and stuff like that. I actually
came up with a definition a little while. Go ahead. I'm going to look for it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with what you're saying, though. And see, I worry because I have kids who are growing up in this stupidity and dealing with this at a younger age. They're dealing with a lot of stuff, and will be dealing with stuff at a younger age than I ever had. And we see that every generation can say that, because cultures and societies can always moving. Right. So they're exposed to things that we never dream. I never dreamed of this kind of garbage happening. Like I said last week, this kind of stuff usually happened in, like you said, in a friend group, or in the military on the boat. We kept it internal, and because at the end of the day, the part that I can kind of get, not in canceling, but the part in ostracism, or really in shaming somebody, I can kind of get on board with, is you can use shame effectively to change
There's some behavior people should be ashamed of.
Exactly. I mean, and
sometimes they don't feel it unless you apply it.
Well, right. But the problem comes in where you have these kids who have been raised up to not even have shame, to not even, because they've always been told everything they do is right. Yep. And they've always been encouraged to do whatever, stupid thing, or
they've been told everything they do is wrong. So no matter what, they don't know the difference between right and wrong.
Exactly.
So if everything I do is wrong, why should I feel shame? I can't do anything right anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, yeah, of course.
So it's one or the other.
Right. I just think, to me, part of that is canceling, is taking the shame that you should supposedly feel, but it's not shame that you should feel because of your realization. It's shame that you should feel because somebody else told you should be ashamed of that. And it's their quote unquote realization, or their enlightened mindset, that says that, well, what you did is wrong, and you should be punished for that. That's the big part in shame, is realizing, oh, well, I did something wrong, and I'm out of line in whatever it is. Yeah. True shame is inside the individual who is in the wrong. But this canceling thing is somebody else putting and projecting that wrong on you, and then just completely throwing you out of whatever they can, or trying to anyway. Yeah. And so
they don't want you to be able to eat.
Well, yeah, exactly. Right. Like with Gina Carano, The Job.
In legitimate ostracism, I just don't want you to eat at my table.
Well, exactly.
In cancel culture, they don't want you to eat anywhere.
Well, right.
unless you bend the knee.
Well, exactly.
So, again, I think that's the distinction that we bring up.
Sure.
I do want to point out, and this is the thing that I wanted to really bring this around to, is the thing that scares me, because I said at the beginning that I'm not as concerned about the leftist canceling. Mm-hmm. I just assume not have a job at Disney or any of these types of companies. For sure. I want the peace of mind. Now, I want to make sure that I do have that peace of mind in my community.
Absolutely.
So here's the thing that concerns me is that conservatives, libertarians, non-leftists, also tend to be prone to cancel culture.
Yes.
So I'll bring up a good example. That cop we talked about last week that got fired, it was ultimately because he posted that 3%er flag.
Right.
They also looked back into his past on some previous social media posts, and he had said some slightly colorful things about Muslims.
Right.
Now, here's what I think is important to keep in mind. First off, what's the worst thing you've ever said? I mean, I'm not asking you to answer.
No. But there's a lot. I couldn't even tell you. Yeah.
I mean, I know some of the things that I've said in the past.
Absolutely.
And maybe they will, maybe they won't come back to bite me. And I don't care if they do. I'm just accepting the fact that, they might.
Right.
But because of that, I can't say that I haven't said anything as bad, as bad, or maybe even worse than what that guy said on a social media post. Now, it's different to say it in private than it is in public.
That's true.
However, Trump said stuff in private too, and it didn't matter. It still was the biggest weapon they used against him.
But it wasn't really in private if you're being recorded either.
He didn't know he was being recorded.
No, I know that, but that's my point.
Right. It was intended to be.
He was under the impression it was private, but it truly wasn't.
Right. But
he found that out.
The point was the intent. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you say something that you intend to be said in private versus what you say,
sure.
And that's the criticism that you could make against this cop, and I understand that. However, if you can honestly say that isn't that's not something you've said, or isn't the worst thing you've said, right? Like if you can't compare anything, even in private, because they will use the private stuff against you too.
Absolutely.
So just because he said it in public, to me, doesn't matter.
Right.
So you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like what he said.
Well, yeah.
All right. But I just want people to consider what the worst thing they've ever said is.
Yeah.
And before you decide to bend the knee to cancel culture, what is the bigger threat? Is it a bigger threat that the left gets to decide who is in your group?
Yeah.
And a part of your community?
Yeah.
Or is it a bigger threat that somebody said something slightly off color, or even incredibly off color in a Facebook comment? Right. What's the bigger threat to your community, the bigger threat to your culture?
Right.
And I'm going to argue that the guy saying something even vicious or disgusting is not a threat.
Right.
The only threat is whether or not you let somebody else define the makeup of your group as a result.
Sure.
And if that is what you're scared of, the only thing you have to do is not bend to it.
Right. Yeah.
Because if they don't get a say, then that isn't the thing you have to worry about. If you're sitting there wondering, well, how am I going to be able to maintain a community if people are coming in and saying things that the other people in the community are not going to like? Well, you're going to have to start convincing all of your community to get on the same page here.
Yeah.
We don't cancel and exclude and ostracize people just because of some awful thing they may or may not have said.
Right.
Because if that is the level we're going to play the game at, we're never going to have a community.
Oh, no, right. You can.
Right.
Because nobody will ever meet that standard.
Right. And exactly. And as I said earlier, you don't get a fighter without the bad things too.
Yeah.
They became fighters because they sometimes crossed lines.
Oh, yeah.
All right? You're just going to have to accept that if you want somebody to fight for you, you're going to have to get a fighter. And if you're going to get a fighter, you're going to get somebody who has had to cross the lines here and there to figure out where that line is.
Right.
Or you could just have weak people running your organizations.
Well, and that's what we have. Yeah.
And that's what we have because we've allowed cancel culture to creep into conservative circles, and we need to stop that from happening. We can do that by building our communities, but we can also do that by acknowledging that nobody is perfect, and you always take the good with the bad.
Right. I mean, people are people. We have to be able to accept people for who they are as a person. You don't have to agree with the way that they choose to behave. You don't have to agree with all these other things. But at the simplest level, people are, and they're no different than you or me or anybody else. Yep. And I think that, because like I mentioned last week, and got some feedback on that from certain people or whatever about me mentioning about the church and the church really having a hard time accepting people who don't necessarily see things the same way and whatever else, and being very exclusive. Now, that's absolutely 100% their right to do that. But where it creeps in to other things is exactly like this, where we take that same kind of exclusivity and apply it to a broader scope, like a political party, and then we start not letting people come in our party, because when at the same time, those people can still embody the same values and political beliefs that we do, but they just don't live life the same way that we do. So we're just going to cast you out too, and we're just going to put you over there, and whatever, you can be somewhere else. You can do whatever it is, and it's counterproductive when in that broader scope. You can do it at a micro level for sure, but when you start involving a bigger community of people is when you get in trouble. And I think that that's kind of exemplary where this whole thing has kind of gotten to, because like I said, this kind of behavior stuff used to be handled at home. Yep. It used to be handled at churches, in Boy Scout, Girl Scout groups, and in smaller groups, and that behavior was changed there.
Yep.
Now that's a
great point, actually.
And since now we live our lives on social media, which I advocate against. I've even gone to where I hardly post anything on social media anymore, because of a lot of this kind of stuff. Not that I'm afraid of somebody saying something to me, but at the same time, it's like, why give them the opportunity? I don't even want to bother. I got so much other stuff to worry about in life. Yeah. Like, I don't even want to bother with this.
Well, you bring up a point that I do want to touch on, and I'm going to make this my last point because I know we're way over time here. But you brought up about how it's really hard to manage. It sounds like what you were saying. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah.
That it's hard to manage using the tool of ostracism appropriately.
Right.
When you have a very large group of people.
Yeah.
It makes more sense, and it's a lot easier to do in smaller groups of people. And again, we used to be in smaller tribes long before civilization, right? So so that makes sense. So that brings up a point. I recently got in touch with my precinct ward over the weekend. We had a great conversation just about all kinds of things, just in general.
Yeah.
But she brought up this idea of people need to form what she calls pods. And effectively, a pod is just a group of people that you're connected with for whatever common goals or objectives. And it should be small, 10 to 15 people at the most. So people tend to want to form organizations that are really, obviously, that are really big, right? But again, like we saw with the MAGA movement, all you got to do is tear down the one head, and you can really fracture an entire movement by taking it. But if you have pods, and you can be a part of multiple pods. I mean, you have one pod that's kind of focused on, like you could have a pod that's focused on shooting guns, right? And focus on the Second Amendment and all that kind of stuff. And you meet once a month just to go shoot guns.
That's going to be a big pod.
And, well, you try to minimize. And that's something I've learned. You cannot go shoot with big groups of people. You need to keep, like, if you want a gun group, it needs to be, I think 15 is too much. Like 5 to 10 at the very most.
Right.
But what I'm saying is if you have these pods that you're a part of that have different objectives and different interests and different, but still relatively shared values, pods can be connected, and you can spread messages across multiple pods.
Sure.
And it's harder to tear down a movement like that.
That's true.
Because you can't just take down one pod and expect the rest of them are going to fall.
That's true.
Right? And that's a way that we could potentially protect ourselves, I think, from cancel culture is if in terms of community building, I am very much focused on community building at a larger level, because we need to make sure that we get the votes out as far as the vote for sheriff in the next election when that comes up, and this election that's coming up in November.
Yeah.
But we do so we do need to get out a large number. But in terms of community building, we need to focus on our small groups.
Yeah.
And if we do that, and we build these pods, and we join these pods, and we just we'll be engaged in our community.
Yeah.
And we'll be far more insulated, I think, from cancel culture than we will if we, again, get ourselves behind one big movement with one king dick in charge that topples and destroys the whole thing. Which I'm not saying that Trump is totally toppled as far as the movement goes. The movement's still very much alive. But, I mean, let's get real. It is not what it was before he,
for sure,
quote unquote, lost the election. Totally fairly and all that. I mean, it was a totally up and up election. Nothing shady happened there at all. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Please don't cancel us. So that's my last point.
Or do and just prove our point.
Right. So that's my last point on that topic. I'm sure we're going to cover the cancel culture stuff a lot going forward. But this is the life this is the society we're living in. I mean, we're going to have to deal with this. Cancel culture isn't going away. We need to figure out how we're going to protect ourselves from it. And we want you to be able to protect yourselves from it. And that's why we're covering this topic a lot. We will certainly cover other topics as well, philosophical conversations that I know we want to have. But this one, I think Scott and I both agree it's incredibly important because I think this touches all of our lives, and we all live under this anvil that could drop at any moment on each of our heads if we're not careful.
Right.
But if we can build our communities and we can insulate ourselves from cancel culture, then we can thrive and prosper.
Absolutely. Part of the way we do that is by getting this podcast out, guys. So if you could like, share, distribute, whatever, this podcast, tell everybody about it that especially locally. We're trying to get the word out. We're trying to be a information dissemination center. That way we can more efficiently get stuff out into the public, to you. A lot of these things that we talk about, we didn't know about a couple months ago, much less years ago. A lot of the information that we deal with now and a lot of the things we're finding out now is stuff that is just not put out. And that's what we're trying to accomplish with this podcast. So we need your help. We need listeners. We need people wanting to be involved with us. So if you want to be a part of that, just reach out to us. It's canceledOutPodcast@gmail.com.
Send us some stories too. That would be especially local stories, because those are the hardest thing to follow. Is local stories. So please do send us that stuff, because of course we talk about national politics, but we really want to focus a good deal on Hamilton County, Cincinnati, Ohio, maybe in northern Kentucky.
Absolutely.
So please do, if you do reach out to us and you have some stories that you want us to cover, please do send the local stories our way. Any story, but local stories in particular.
Absolutely. And we're on social media, Canceled Out Podcast.
Facebook, and what else?
Facebook, Instagram.
Scott runs all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just along for the ride at this point.
well, it's not running yet. We're getting there, but we're creating some content and stuff like that. So we're going to be out there real soon. So if you're listening to this at a later date,
Yeah.
But all of this,
eventually
all the links,
we might do some live shows too, which I think would be fun. Especially we can do some call-in shows. That'd be awesome.
Right. Yeah. There's some.
We can get there if y'all share. You start telling people about this. We can do a lot of fun stuff that you can join in on.
Right.
And you could be a part of a community that we're building. I mean, this podcast is just a small part of the work that Scott and I do.
Yes.
I'm going to just shamelessly plug chronicles.org is my website, and it's basically a reference site, kind of like Wikipedia, but it's more built on a timeline as opposed to the encyclopedia format. So chronicles.org, that's spelled CHRONIKLES.org. And I'm also getting involved with local politics. I've recently joined a political campaign. For now, I'm not going to say whose, just because I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page on that before I just go announcing things like that. But I'm sure at some point I will. So I'm definitely very active, building a community, getting involved with people, talking to people, meeting people regularly. So I'm a very busy person. I know Scott's a very busy person. He's got his own projects that he's working on. But the point is that we are building something here, and you could be a part of it if you choose to be, and you really should, because I mean Scott and I are pretty cool dudes.
Right?
At least I am. Scott's okay.
I'll even let you rub my head, maybe my beard, if you're nice.
Ooh.
Of all, we want to build a community, and we need your help. So at the end of the day, if you could share it, if you like it, if you want to sponsor us, if you want to put your ads on our podcast, we'd love to be able to do that. We want to build, especially with local business owners, and being able to assemble a community of like-minded individuals there, people that we can promote, that share the same values that we do, and that want to see America first. We will talk to you guys again next week, and please just don't kill the culture. That would be great.
Protect the culture.
Yeah.
Quit canceling people just for the sake of it.
It would be awesome if
we'll have a good sign off one of these days. And
right.
I am gonna put together some tunes for us for
nice.
For an intro and outro. So
nice.
I'll be working on that at some point. I just haven't. The inspiration hasn't struck yet, but I'll get
right.
there. I'll get there.
Fair enough. So we'll see you guys.
See you.